This was a left-handed girl. She was quickly filling in answers on the answer sheet. In less than 5 minutes, she filled in all the answers. The teacher just yawned. She immediately wrote all the answers on the eraser. Then she turned to look at her classmate behind her. She took off her shoe, put the eraser in it, and kicked the shoe back. But suddenly, the teacher stood up to check around. Lynn quickly covered her leg. Fortunately, the teacher didn't see it. Grace, sitting in the back, quickly took off her shoe and kicked up for Lynn. But she kicked so hard that the shoe flew out in the middle of the class. Lynn was very nervous. She was afraid that the teacher would soon discover this incident. So she quickly picked up her exam paper, put her shoe on and submitted the paper. But she also covered Grace to get the answers. And a simple cheating process was successful. Finally, Grace passed the exam and got a score of 3.87. This was a score she never obtained before. Lynn was an excellent student. Even the principal also hoped she could get into a top university. If someone else went to school, they had to pay for the tuition. But when Lynn went to school, the principal would support her. No long after, Grace introduced Lynn to Pat, her boyfriend. Pat was a rich kid but had a poor performance. After that, Pat asked Lynn to help cheat at a test. And of course, Lynn would receive a payment. $300,000 for each subject, a total of 13 subjects. If it's possible, 5 friends of Pat also wanted to join. The total of $23,040,000. That amount was equal to her 1-month income. Lynn also gave in to temptation of money and agreed to help Pat. It's simple to cheat when one person was in the front and one was in the back. But now it's more difficult because there were 5 people. While Lynn was playing the piano, she suddenly came up with a new idea. She used different rhythms of her fingers while playing. To represent A, B, C, and D. She just put her hand on the table. When she tapped any finger, they would choose that answer. The others chose the correct answer based on her finger gestures. In less than an hour, she earned more than 23 million baht. For the first time, Lynn felt that making money was simple. Then, Lynn opened a piano class. More and more her classmates were coming to join her class. It's not surprising when an unexpected thing happened. This was the final exam. A schoolboy was copying the answers of his Lynn next to him. Bank, a good student, despised this action. So when he was about to submit his paper, he reminded Lynn, "Someone next to you is copying your answers." Bank didn't know that through helping her friends cheat at tests, Lynn earned a lot of money every 1 month. She had 25 friends who needed to cheat at this exam. She would earn much more money when they passed the exam. This was a school-wide general exam with 2 different codes. That made Lynn's classmates very nervous. In one exam, how could a person complete both exam codes? But Lynn was still calm. It only took 15 minutes for her to complete one code. Next, she used her fingers to signal for those who had the code number 1. 13 students submitted the tests at the same time. And of course, Lynn received a large amount of money. Until everyone surrounded the teacher to submit their papers. Lynn quickly swapped her paper with her friend to get the code number 2. Because she took too much time to give the previous answers. There's not much time left. Lynn could only do the test as quick as possible. Fortunately, there were still 5 minutes left to give everyone the answers. The time for submission was over. And the teacher had informed. But there's still not dangerous. 10 million had been transferred to Lynn's account. While they were having fun, an unexpected thing happened. Bank reported to the principal that there's been some cheating at that final exam. Moreover, on Lynn's scrap paper, there were solutions to both exam codes. The principal was very angry. So she suspended Lynn's scholarship. If Lynn repeated the offense again, she would be expelled from the school. She was reprimanded by father. So she felt extremely regretful. The new semester was coming. Grace and her boyfriend intended to study abroad. But the required condition was to pass the STIC. STIC was an international standardized test. Candidates from all over the world would start taking the test at the same time. So it's impossible to cheat at that test. In desperation, Grace immediately offered 60 million. Lynn suddenly thought of a way to cheat. At the hotel lobby, Lynn saw the time in different countries on the clocks. That reminded Lynn of the time difference between countries. Lynn only needed to complete the test in Australia. So she would have 4 hours to send the answers to Grace in Thailand. Pat also found 30 more friends. Each person had to pay 25 million in advance. So the total of 750 million. Before the test started, everyone would receive for pencils type 2B. The thickness of the barcode on the pencil represented for A, B, C, and D. The number next to it was the answers to fill in the blank. For the essay, they would provide the answer. Candidates would write the content by themselves. In the cheating process, memorizing answers was very difficult. There were 100 questions in STIC. For Lin, she could only memorize 50. So now they had to find another helper. The only person they thought about was Bank. Bank was from a poor family. He could study abroad by his own ability. But under the temptation of money, he also agreed to help them cheat at that test. In a room only 2 square meters, a fraud scheme that shook the whole Asia has begun. This girl, as an excellent student, would direct a cheating scheme in front of thousands of people in Australia. STIC was an international standardized test. At the same time, candidates in the whole world would start taking the test. Utilizing the time difference, she would complete her test in Australia. Then, she would send back the answers to Thailand. People in Thailand would print the answers on a 2B pencil and sold it to students who wanted to cheat. Before taking the test, Lin and Bank would go to the restroom and hid their cell phones in the toilet bowl. The first section began. There were 52 multiple choices. The time started right now. Soon after, Bank finished the section before Lin. He started to memorize half of the answers. Then, Lin also completed her section and started to memorize the answers left. Time for the first section was over. There were 10 minutes to take a break. The two of them quickly went to the restroom. They used the cell phones to send the answers back to Thailand. When Lin finished sending, Bank still hasn't sent the last 5 answers. Bank wanted another 1 million. Otherwise, he would stop this transaction. Pat was so angry that he kept scolding Bank. But finally, there was no choice. He had to agree to Bank's request. The answers for the first batch of 2B pencils had been printed. All barcodes on pencils had been replaced with answer codes. The second section begun. The two finished the section and started to memorize the answers. It's time to take a break. The two quickly went to the restroom. But right now, there was an unexpected thing. Bank was in the toilet for too long. So, the supervisor had noticed him. The supervisor asked him to immediately open the door. Bank had sent all answers. He even had deleted the chat history. But Bank accidentally dropped the toilet tank cover on the floor. In the end, Bank was exposed. Although Lin was also suspected by the supervisor. She secretly hid her phone in her shoe. So they hadn't detected it. Seeing Bank being caught, Lin was very scared. She almost burst into tears. When she returned to the exam room, Lin saw that the proctors were checking the candidates. So Lin could only pretend to drink water. And then she hid the phone inside the water bottle. Bank hasn't still come in the room. This meant that Lin had to memorize all the answers herself. However, Lin was so stressed that she couldn't concentrate. Suddenly the piano came to her mind. That helped Lin think of another way. That was turning 100 answers into a song. In order to leave the room quickly, she stuck a pencil in her throat. Then she pretended to be sick and asked for permission to go out earlier. But the supervisor who caught Bank before noticed Lin. Lin ran away while sending the answers. Before being caught, Lin promptly sent all the answers. Moreover, she also used milk and cookies to trick the supervisor. In the end, Lin was finally released for her innocence. Unfortunately, Bank was permanently disqualified from taking the STIC. And the students in Thailand also quickly got all the answers. After returning home, Lin also refused to receive the money. Moreover, she cut off all ties with Grace. Seeing her father going to the airport to pick her up. Right now, Lin realized that she really did wrong. A few days later, Bank invited Lin to his house. Bank said he had a scheme that each person would earn 10 million. As long as Lin agreed, the two would continue to cooperate. Otherwise, he would tell everyone about cheating on the STIC test. But Lin frankly refused Bank's offer. Because yesterday, she had submitted her confession to the STIC organization. She didn't want to make more mistakes. This is a film inspired by real-life news.